New Buddha-Way Dhamma Talks. Jeff Hunt presents a talk on some aspect of the Buddha's teaching.
Cooling the mind. In the context of what I've just said about agitation, conflict, violence, discrimination, prejudice, all the rest of it, what is the matter with us? A lot of it has to do with living in agitation and reacting to agitation so that we multiply. It's a multiplier effect of increasing the agitation until we're at the point of total madness, really. So we just need to cool down. We need to calm down. And that calming down is not necessarily done through, international agencies, the United Nations or UNESCO or whatever. It's done, it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with us as individuals. Because if our minds cool down, then everything will cool down. Because that's where the problem starts. The problem starts in our, the Buddha would say ignorance. He doesn't mean that in an insulting way. He means our failure to develop the capacity to look into ourselves and understand how our own minds are the source of so much of our difficulties, so much of our individual sufferings, our group sufferings, our human sufferings. And when I think where climate change is going to take us, this is going to be global suffering on a scale we probably haven't seen before. Unfortunately, it is our children and grandchildren who are going to get the brunt of it. So, cool. It's interesting that the word nirvana actually means cooled down, coolness. It means like when a candle burns out or when it's put out, that putting out, what is followed by coolness. The heat has gone, the flame has gone, the burning has gone. Now burning there is a kind of metaphor for suffering. The very thing that we're kind of moving towards as an ideal of perfect peace, which is an ideal of course, could be represented just by the cool, which I think is a pretty good concept actually in the modern age, because we're all too worked up. We're overloaded. We're overloaded with information. We're overloaded with enticements and inducements from advertising, persuasiveness, quarrels, violence. How much more of this can we really take? Where is it coming from? It's no good. There's no advantage, no lesson in saying it's them or they are doing it. Who is the they? There is no they. It's only a we. There's only a we to think about here. We as a human race have done this to ourselves. So we need to cool down, but we need to know how to cool down. We know how to reach out to the cool. We're hyperactive. Okay, how do we do that? Well, mindfulness is certainly part of the story, and then you have to know what mindfulness is and how to practice it. There's part of the Buddha's teaching which talks about effort, right effort. And in that teaching, he talks about the four endeavors, or the four efforts, which are all about learning which direction in your mind is agitating and which is cooling. We're all seeking the cool, aren't we? I mean, that's why we go on holidays, for example, which doesn't actually, if only we could see the broader picture, make things any better. We're just putting thousands of tons of carbon into the atmosphere, flying about the world so that we can be cool for a while. It's getting hotter all the time. Stay where you are would be my recommendation. And where you are is within yourself. To find the coolness in yourself. It could well be cooler at home than it could be than some foreign land which has got a 5-star hotel that you're lusting after. The teachings of the Buddha on this on four endeavors are basically that there are states of mind which are cooling, or he says fruitful, you could translate it that way, and there are states of mind which are unfruitful or which are agitating. Right? He also creates another distinction in that if you look, for example, at those which are agitating, some are already we express all the time, and others are at the level of a potential. I have a potential to get angry. I have a potential to get irritated. I've got a potential to greed. I've got a potential to find. Where is it? Is it hiding somewhere inside me? So there's the potential and there's the actual. But the same with fruitfulness or coolness. Sometimes we are cool for a moment, but we have a potential to be a lot more cool, to be a lot more peaceful, a lot more understanding, a lot more compassionate. There isn't a person on this planet that wouldn't like to have greater peace and wisdom, compassion in their lives. I know, especially when we're young, we seem to be looking for the opposite. We want excitement. Yeah, but you can only get so much of excitement, and then it becomes painful, and it becomes damaging, and we know that. So there has to be a limit to that as to everything. But there's a time for everything, and of course, I was young once, and was pretty crazy for a while, and was seeking excitement, and seriously bumped my head a few times as a consequence, but I somehow managed to survive. How do we then become aware of the states of mind that are cooling and peaceful, and the states of mind that are agitating and which are generating suffering within myself and which then radiate out everywhere else? Well, it is by training oneself to look inwards and note what state of mind you're actually in. So just to give a simple example, if I'm irritated by another driver on the road, now we all have this. It's a daily, well, not just daily event, it's every minute there's some driver getting angry with some other driver. Right? So now, instead of just reacting by cutting up the other driver or blowing your horn at the other driver, you could watch yourself. Which is quite interesting, really. What is going on in me now? You can just start to catch your own anger growing up, begin to emerge. That's not cool. That's not cool. That's heating up. There's nothing cool about that. Right? But you can actually watch it, and you can learn to catch it fairly early, and you can also learn what its characteristics are. To start with, it is hot, it is burning, and it is suffering. When you're angry, you are suffering. The other person may not even know what's going on with it, might not even have noticed you. So where is this anger? It's in you, it's not anywhere else. And that is hot, that is suffering. But because our minds are directed outwards, we don't really notice that is what is going on in us. But you might also have cool states of mind. So a cool state of mind would be feeling very kindly towards someone, caring about someone, wanting to cheer someone up, feelings of generosity, feelings of gratitude. Oh, that is so good that I was helped with that, or I was, I'm so grateful to this person. Or you can even be grateful to the grass or the trees, for that matter. We should be grateful even to plankton, which are practically invisible because they produce all the oxygen on this planet. So we wouldn't be able to breathe if it weren't for plankton. And they're so small, they're practically invisible. And yet, at the moment, we are busy bumping them off. With pollution, with the warming of the oceans, the plankton are dying. That's pretty sad, isn't it, seeing as we totally depend on these little invisible creatures. See, we don't understand that things are all interrelated. And the hotter things get, the more pain we're all going to be in. Let's all cool down. But the only way to do it is to understand the workings of your own mind. When you are feeling kindly or generous, if you could just stop and feel, well, how does that actually feel? The fact is, it feels good. It feels good. When I'm angry or irritated or frustrated or whatever, or wanting something, feeling greedy, wanting something I haven't got, all of that is a kind of a burning, suffering feeling. But when I'm generous, grateful, kindly, loving, or whatever, that feels good. But I don't notice that it feels good. So I don't seem to then, harness the power to move my mind this way rather than that way. Now that is what meditation is trying to do. It's trying to raise our self-awareness and see that we are the architects of our own suffering. But we are also the architects of our own caring and compassion, if we know how. But if we've lost trust in each other, it could be difficult to kickstart this again. And we've gone down to a pretty low ebb, so human trust is not at a very high level now, is it really? We're afraid of each other. We're afraid of what other human beings or other groups will do to us or whatever. We just want things to stay the same, but they won't. So, we've got to make quite an effort to sort of start rebuilding that, and I think the Buddha's teachings and the teachings of other such teachers, not just the Buddha, but other similar teachers, are part of our heritage. And that is where we should be turning. Turn your mind away from modern technology and all the rest that are entertainments and stuff has gone for a moment, and turn you back to the human inheritance of wisdom and peace. Seek it out. Ask questions. Get together. We really need to do this. Mindfulness clearly has, prime place in that it is a tool. It is the tool of turning the mind around. Now, what is important within the Buddha's teaching about mindfulness is that it's a tool to a particular purpose. And that purpose is, if you like, cooling down, becoming more peaceful, more compassionate, and learning from the application of mindfulness how one feels when the mind goes in different directions, and what the characteristics of our inner experience are. So one thing you learn from mindfulness is impermanence. That if I feel angry, how long is that going to last? Can you spend a lifetime being angry? Probably not, although some of us seem to try. It then becomes something else called resentment, which is a smouldering anger. Let me give you a metaphor. If you had say an iron bolt that was knocked into a large chunk of wood, right, and you want to get that bolt out, and it refuses to come out. Now this represents what the Buddha calls our defilements, our hatred, greed, all the rest of it. Our fears, our anxieties, our lack of trust. Want to get that bolt out because it's not doing much good there. Well, now if you heat up the bolt in the context of that big plank of wood, what is going to happen? It's going to get more and more stuck in there, and eventually it'll probably start cracking the chunk of wood because it's expanding. Don't we applying heat? It's like getting angrier and angrier about things. People rage about the banks and the insurance companies and the government and rage about that, and they're getting hotter and hotter, not seeing that they're actually probably behaving just the same way as the very people that they're criticising, and probably wouldn't do a better job if they were in their position. What if we did the opposite with this bolt stuck in the wood? What if you found a way of cooling it off? Just imagine for a moment getting some ice onto it or something. Now it would start contracting. Now you could pull the bolt out of the plank of wood, couldn't you? It could even just drop out of its own accord. That's why we talk so much about letting go. Letting go, dropping away all this stuff we have swimming about in our heads, greed, hatred, fear, distrust. That's the bolt stuck in the wood. And if you heat it up, it's going to crack the whole wood, which is the damage we do to ourselves. Cool it down. Let it go. It'll just start falling away by itself. Sometimes people ask me, well, what is this letting go thing? How do I do it? It's a funny question, really, because actually it's not a doing something, it's a not doing something. It's a not heating things up. So how do you not heat something up? Well, by taking away the fuel. I mean, that's actually what the Buddha says. Take away the fuel. What is the fuel? The fuel is fear, it's pride, it's ego, it's hatred, it's grasping, wanting more, usually at somebody else's expense, or the expense of vegetation, animals, insects, anything you care to do it. We made a pretty good job of destroying a large part of what we actually depend on. Has there ever been such a deranged creature on this planet? But there is hope, because we have the capacity for self-awareness. So we can become aware that all what is happening around us is due to the activity of our own minds. You've got the capacity to look into your mind and see how it's working and how it is generating the suffering, the heat of suffering, or it has the capacity to let go. Cool down. Don't want so much. Don't feel so bad about not getting what you want. Stop rejecting so much the stuff that you've got that you don't want. I'm not saying never address anything around you. There are lots of things to address, but addressing it in the right way is really important. Addressing it in a wise way and beginning with yourself rather than getting supercilious about it or self-righteous about it. That doesn't lead anywhere. We've got a lot of politicians and military people self-righteously blowing up other people. They all think they're right. Yeah, they all think they're right. They're not quite sure that they're right. Self-righteousness. Start with yourself. Let's try that. You could try it. I think cooling down is quite a good theme, really. Think of the whole path as a kind of cooling down. We're heading towards the cool in the way we speak to each other, our actions, our relationships, how we view other people, how we view our connectedness with nature. All of this is just a cooling down.
New Buddha Way lets go of East and West and starts afresh in the life we have now. For more information, visit www.newbuddhaway.org.